Hello, everyone. I hope that you're having a great day and great start to 2022. My name is Corey Daharsh, and I am here with Advanta IRA to bring you our first educational webinar of the year. Today, I will be covering real estate investment strategies, just some great ways to take control of your 2022. Again, my name is Corey Daharsh. I've been with Advanta since 2016. I served for a number of years as a client account manager, processing day-to-day transactions and answering questions of clients regarding IRA rules, regulations, and so forth. And about a year ago, I switched over to this educational role as I moved to Western North Carolina and help develop a presence for Advanta in this community, as well as the regions around me in either Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, etc. But really the main point there is that I've been with the company for a long time, and I've handled a lot of real estate transactions in my time with the company. All of my contact info is here. I'll also have this up at the end of the webinar as well, so that if you don't catch it right now, you can catch it later. As far as today's webinar, again, the topic is real estate investment strategies. Just so you have a clear-cut agenda, I'm going to start by going into what self-direction is, a few different real estate assets you can hold, and how to acquire them. I'll have some examples and case studies to provide you of different strategies and how they would actually pan out in a real scenario. And then at the end, I will close with answering your questions and just a wrap-up conclusion. Again, in context, I will answer everyone's questions as best I can, either as I'm going if they relate to my slides, or at the end of the webinar today. So please feel free to jot any questions you have down into the question box in GoToWebinar. You will be on mute the entirety of this webinar so that I can present everything. And I'll, again, be happy to answer all questions. If there's anything I cannot get to, we'll try to reach back out to you accordingly afterwards and follow up with those answers. Before I get into any of the main details about the webinar today, I do have this brief disclaimer. Advanta IRA and its employees do not provide any tax, legal, or financial advice, and we do not endorse any specific investment products that you may see us talk about or hear us discuss. Please feel free to consult your own proper attorneys, CPAs, whatever your team is before you make any investments. Conduct your due diligence as you see fit before entering any investments or strategies that you're interested in pursuing. At Advanta IRA, we are a self-direct IRA administrator. We specialize in alternative asset investments. We've been in this industry for over 20 years, well, about 20 years. We have about $2 billion in assets under management, and all of the funds that our clients have that are not actively invested are insured up to FDIC limits when they're in their accounts waiting to be put towards an investment transaction. Above and beyond the educational content that we put out, it is important to know that we pair each client of ours up with a dedicated client account manager. That role I referenced at the beginning of my webinar, because I served in that role for a few years. And that person will be your dedicated person you reach out to. So it's not like with a larger company where you have to call and explain your scenario and situation to a number of different people each time you contact your administrator. We give you one person, you develop a relationship with them, and they actually end up helping you and kind of helping know what you're trying to do and answer questions before you even ask them in some cases. Aside from the account manager, the other thing that we try to do to set ourselves above and beyond the competitors in our industry is provide lots of events like the one you're watching today, whether it be an in-person webinar. Hopefully we can get back into those as COVID starts to go away. We have a video library, very robust video library, might I add, on our YouTube page that covers a lot of different investment strategies. We've got great guest speakers that are industry experts in their specific subject matter. And we also have a blog if you're interested in other industry news and updates as they may become apparent. Towards the end of the year last year, we had some items in the pending legislation that we were blogging and putting out content for. So if you're interested in those type of things, please feel free to check out these various options for learning through Advanta. Now, jumping into what a self-directed IRA is. Self-directed retirement accounts, whether it's an IRA or a 401k, are basically retirement account products that allow you to invest your money however you see fit, given a few certain rules and regulations, instead of specifically telling you, hey, you must invest into these market items that we as a custodian have vetted and have done our due diligence on. Advanta actually puts the due diligence in your power and allows you to invest into pretty much anything you'd like. Again, there are certain rules and regulations that I'll go over, but it's very limited as far as what you cannot invest into. And the table is pretty much open for a lot of things. Specifically today, real estate, I'll go into a lot of very detailed options of real estate investment strategies. If you've not heard about self-direction, that is perfectly fine and common. Only about 4% of retirement accounts across the country are self-directed. And when you put that into perspective, it is a multiple trillion-dollar industry. There are great ways that you can self-direct your retirement funds. You just might have not known so prior to this webinar or learning about Advanta or maybe other IRA custodians that handle self-directed accounts. There are plenty of different types of plans that can be self-directed. I alluded briefly just in that last slide to 401k plans, but we do also offer education savings accounts, health savings accounts, whether it's for an individual or to cover an entire family, SEP IRAs, simple IRAs, individual K plans, traditional Roth IRAs. It's also important to note if you've got a 401k or a 403b with a previous employer, meaning you've left the company and you still have a retirement account with that company, those are great funds to roll over to a self-direct account and get some self-direct strategies started for your retirement portfolio. That money is otherwise not really earning you any benefit if you've already left the company. So it's definitely something to consider and keep in mind. Now, why do people actually switch to self-direction? In my experience, we've seen that a lot of people switch to self-direction because they're already doing a type of investing that they can do with the self-direct account, and they realize it's a new source of capital for investing in that manner. A lot of people are getting fatigued with the stock markets going up and down and just want a little bit more direct control of their investment strategies. And also the tax benefits. Really talking about real estate, there are some great tax benefits of holding real estate in an IRA or a 401k as opposed to as an individual. And those benefits are either growing tax-free earnings if you have a Roth account, or tax-deferred earnings if you have a traditional style account. When we're honing in on real estate investment specifically, there are a number of different investment options you have, whether you're trying to get into small single family or multifamily homes for short or long-term rentals, or a fix and flip. Real estate syndications, where you're not really buying a piece of property in your retirement account, but you're joining a larger collective to do a larger based real estate deal than you might be able to afford within your specific account. We've also got strategies for people that are just starting out in investing with their retirement account, whether it be an option contract, which is going to be one of my examples later on, tax deeds and liens at your local tax auction within your county or the county of your choice, and then lending and or wholesaling as well are some options that you can really get a hold of, and you don't have to have $100,000, $200,000 in your retirement account if you're starting with those strategies to build up from there and then get to a threshold where you can invest into an actual domicile, whether again that's a single or a multi-family unit. One of the key things in self-direction is to invest with the people you know and to use your network. It's a great tool to network within your community, and specifically real estate communities. I implore you to check out your local RIA group, find other communities through LinkedIn and other networking platforms where you can actually build relationships with people that are investing in the same way as you or in the same area as you, so you can bounce ideas off each other and help each other with referrals and different things like that. It always helps. And again, as I said earlier in the disclaimer slide, Advanta does not do any due diligence on your behalf. So it would definitely be in your best interest to work with the people you know, network, and grow your net worth through that network. Real briefly, moving money to a self-direct account is a very simple process. If it's going from one type of account that is not self-direct to the same type of account in a self-direct capacity, you can actually do that with a custodian to custodian transfer. There is no taxable event taking place. That money just moves hands from the previous custodian to the new self-direct custodian. If you're changing account types in moving to a self-direct plan, that can also be done with no tax consequence. There is some reporting that takes place from the distribution out of the previous plan to a rollover into the new plan. But as long as you're moving the same amount that you've distributed into the new plan, the documentation for tax reporting will cancel each other out and there will be no taxable event to be had. So no taxes or charges to that effect in moving money from non-self-direct accounts over to self-direct accounts. This is a process that we can also help you with on an individual basis. If you're not sure what specific type of movement of money you need to do, that's a conversation you and I can have, and we can go over that, and even contact your previous custodian if you need help reaching out to them. So the rules around self-directed investing, as I alluded to earlier in the webinar, you cannot invest into life insurance policies or anything the IRS would deem to be a hard to value collectible. There are some coins you're allowed to invest into, and that is its own webinar and topic, being precious metal investing. If you're interested in that specifically, feel free to reach out and I'm sure I can point you in the right direction for some information to that effect. Prohibited transactions are also prohibited in context. They are investments with someone that is a disqualified person, meaning a lineal descendant or ascendant of yours. That's not to say that you cannot invest in partner with disqualified persons, but that is to say you cannot interact with them on the other side of a transaction. So, for example, you can't buy a property in your retirement account from your parent. If it's a rental property, you cannot let your children rent and live in the property owned by your retirement account. I'll have a few examples on the next slide actually, but before that, I just want to jump into real quickly the UBIT and UDFI taxes. Those are some little known taxes that may apply in a few real estate investment strategies. I'm not going to get any deeper into those because they are some niche topics and we do have some content that covers those specifically. So if you're interested in learning more about UBIT or UDFI, if that may be involved in your real estate investment strategies, let me know and I'm sure I can connect you with the right content and information. Again, as I alluded to on the last slide, prohibited transaction examples here of things that you just blatantly cannot do within a retirement account. Your IRA cannot purchase real estate from a disqualified person. Your IRA cannot let a disqualified person live in real estate that it owns or borrow to or from a disqualified person. I'll leave these up on the slide just for a second, but I'm not going to read all of them as I basically have gone over most of the context and scenario directly. I do have my first question. How about cannabis-based business opportunities? As of right now, with the cannabis industry still being federally illegal, the IRS does not see those types of investments as being allowable within a retirement account. That is something that we can discuss further as regulations and legalities change in that context. But as of right now, it's our understanding that the IRS is not allowing cannabis related investments does have to, in some cases, be on a case-by-case scenario if the investment's actually into cannabis or into a larger holding company. But again, if you're interested further in those types of investments, please feel free to reach us directly and we can consult with you and discuss what scenario you've got in mind. I'll also take a quick second to let anyone else know, if you're joining us a little bit later than I started, this recording will be up on our YouTube page in about a day or two, and we are also happy to answer your questions. Please feel free to type them in the chat block. I will get to them as efficiently as I can as I'm going through the webinar. And if it does not specifically relate or I'm in the middle of another slide, I will get to all of the questions at the end if I've not reached them. So real estate assets that you can hold include single family homes, whether it's for long-term or short-term, rental or rehab projects, condos, mobile home communities, or a specific mobile home unit, tax deeds and liens, REITs, real estate investment trusts, and syndication investments, as I referenced earlier as well. Those are all just a few examples. Again, there's additional options such as option contracts, wholesaling. There's just a number of different real estate investments you could make. Right now, I'm just going to go specifically into purchasing a physical piece of real estate within a retirement account. It's very simple. You, again, conduct the due diligence. So you have to find the property that you're interested in purchasing. And what you would do in that case is make sure the contract is written. So your retirement account is the buyer, not yourself as an individual. An example of that from Advanta's side of things would be Advanta IRA for the benefit of John Smith, IRA number, and then your specific account number. That is what will go on all of the contract paperwork. That is what will be signed on the deed to close. And that is what will be recorded with the county as the owner of that piece of real estate. All of the funds for that transaction must come from the IRA account if the IRA account is buying that property outright. There is scenarios where it may not be 100% outright, where you're partnering. I'll go over that in one of my examples here shortly. All of the income of that property, once it's generated, would flow directly back into the retirement account, completely tax-free. Now, if it's a tax-deferred account, you may have to pay taxes later on in life when you distribute that money. But as for the time that it's generating and entering back into the retirement account, that is completely tax-free. And also, if the property is sold, it is not subject to capital gains because it is a disregarded entity for tax purposes, being an extension of your retirement account. When you're paying bills with a retirement property, you do have to pay those bills directly through the retirement account. At Advanta, we have a very simple way to do that. You can either log into your online portal and submit a bill payment request that way, or you could simply forward the invoice in question to your account manager. With a lot of utilities, we actually have some of the invoices sent directly to us. For example, your tax bill that comes on an annual basis, maybe your utilities are mailed directly to Advanta. We process upon receipt and send the payment out, so long as your retirement account with us has sufficient funds to do so. You could also establish a property manager for your retirement account, and that company would serve in the role of handling the direct processing and then sending Advanta any proceeds after they've held their stable safety cushion, if you will, of money that they need to cover the next upcoming bills and expenses. As far as managing a physical property, you cannot do any sweat equity or manual labor on the property if it's owned by your retirement account, and you cannot allow a disqualified person to do that work. However, any other third-party individuals that you've worked with, maybe a local handyman or a non-disqualified relative, can do that work. Again, the real rule here is that you personally, as the client account holder, cannot do any sweat equity or repairs to the property owned by your retirement account. When you're renting the property, Again, the IRA receives all of the income. The IRA also signs any leases and contractual items by way of your client account manager team. So if you've got a new contract that you'd like to put a new tenant in your property, that's something you would, again, make sure it's drafted up with the retirement account uh, as the holder of the property, and send that to your account manager. We'll have to make sure that you've approved the document, typically with a simple DocuSign request, and then we'll execute and return that document for your tenant to receive the countersigned copy. You negotiate all of the terms. You are named on the contract if you'd like to, but again, the IRA account specifically is who the agreement is through, and you can also use a property manager if you choose to do so for this. Now, right before I jump into my case studies, I am going to go over a few of the questions that I've received since I stopped last. And then I'm going to go into a few case studies, just covering different real estate investment examples. Are you going to discuss options for doing private lending and any leads Advanta may have? Well, private lending can be done for real estate. I'm not planning to specifically go into that, but it's basically your retirement account can be a lender. You would draft up a promissory note at your discretion or with the help of a legal consultant, again, at your discretion. And your IRA account can be a lender on either a secured, meaning something's being recorded with the county that you can collect upon if the borrower defaults, or an unsecured, meaning you really don't have any recourse if the borrower defaults capacity. Can you act as a hard money lender through your self-direct IRA? Yes, I basically just answered that directly. If you have any further questions about hard money lending, please feel free to email me and I can put you in touch with either other webinars that we've recorded or direct text from our website on hard money lending. What about personal loaning to biomedical companies? Biomedical companies can be a lender, sure. Personal loaning, it really just goes into hard money lending. You as the account holder would decide if you want that to be an unsecured loan or a secured loan. You'll have to decide on what item you would like to have secured, and it would be between yourself and the borrower to go have that security instrument recorded in the county of your choosing. But it really doesn't matter if the borrower is a biomedical company, an individual, a collective like an LLC or any other type of limited partnership entity. Your retirement account can lend, yes. Can my IRA invest into LLC, real estate otherwise, or does it have to be a specific property? You can definitely invest by way of an LLC or into an LLC. I will actually cover that, which is called the checkbook control strategy, as one of my case studies here in just a moment. If you had a job previously and believe you participated in the 401k plan but forgot about it, is there a way to check? I'm not sure if there's a overarching database to check something like that, but what I would implore you to do is just reach out to that previous employer and specifically ask for their benefits department or their HR department and simply ask in that context, whether it's an email or a phone call. I know I've done that specifically for my wife when she left working with the school systems. I had reached out on her behalf to the benefit department in the county that she was working at and helped coordinate a rollover out of that previous employer plan to another retirement product. And one last question before I jump into our case studies. Can you give an update on the portion of the BBB, Build Back Better bill, regarding the inability to hold 100% ownership of property in self-directed IRA after 2 years? As of my understanding, everything that was specifically involved with our industry in the Build Back Better bill had been removed, with the exception of a rule for 10 million or higher valued Roth IRA accounts. For the individual asking that question, I will be sure to double check on that to make sure I'm accurate. And if for any context I am inaccurate and this is something, I will be happy to reach you directly or have one of my colleagues reach you. If you are an account holder of ours, I'll make sure your account manager follows up with you with that answer. All right, with that, I'm going to jump into my case studies. Please feel free to continue throwing questions into the question blocks. I will get to them as soon as I get through these case studies, and we'll have a few other pieces of information before we wrap up today. So case study 1 is partnering on real estate. Again, this is something I loosely alluded to earlier that you can do as an investment strategy, and we'll jump into it right now. So in this case study, I've got Paul and Linda. They would like to partner their retirement accounts to buy real estate. They each have about $100,000 in their IRAs, and they find a property valued at $150,000 that needs $20,000 worth of repairs to get it ready for renting. They estimate receiving $1,500 a month in rent, which will go into their retirement accounts when it is generated and sent along by their tenants. So who does what in this scenario? Paul and Linda establish self-direct retirement accounts for themselves. They've found the property. They make an offer to purchase, and in that offer, again, they list their respective retirement accounts as the buyers. They'll also indicate a specific ownership percentage, which I will show you on the next slide. And they mark that contract as read and approved, along with submitting the purchase authorization paperwork to Advanta, directing us to fund the investment transaction by their retirement accounts. On Advanta's end, your client account manager will work directly with your closing agent, your real estate agent, and the title company. They'll make sure all the documents are signed on behalf of the IRAs by an Advanta authorized representative. We'll send the money out to the closing table, and then we receive and store all of the executed closing documents, all of the recorded documents after the county's recorded them get sent to Advanta, and we safekeep those for the benefit of your retirement account. Moving forward, we would receive all rental income and pay all expenses using the retirement accounts that Paul and Linda have established. Now, as I just referenced, the deed of title will actually have to be split between Paul and Linda's retirement account. In my scenario here, they are going in this property at a 50-50 ownership split. So the deed will list Advanta IRA for the benefit of Paul's IRA as to 50% undivided interest, and the same thing, Advanta IRA for the benefit of Linda's IRA as to 50% undivided interest. It's key to note that you do not have to limit yourself to partnering with other retirement accounts, and you can also partner with disqualified persons as long as you're on the same side of the deal. So this scenario could easily replace Linda's IRA account with Paul as an individual. It could be replaced with Paul's parent or child, or a complete non-related investment partner that Paul works with. It does not specifically have to be an IRA account. The percentage of the investment put forth by each of the investor is what breaks down that ownership percentage. So if the property purchase was $100,000 and Paul had 70, Linda had 30 in her respective retirement account, then it would be a 70-30 split. It goes down to the exact dollar amount contributed towards the closing cost, and once those percentages are set, they are set. It's basically the same percentage that will need to be paid for any expenses, and also how the income will be split. So in context, if it was $1,000 a month in rent, then 500 in this scenario goes to Paul, 500 goes to Linda. If they have a $10,000 roof replacement, 5,000 must come out of Paul's retirement account and 5,000 must come out of Linda's retirement account. Scenario number 2 is buying or selling an option contract. So in this scenario, we've got an investor, Natalie, who is a well-connected real estate investor, but not necessarily a in-depth retirement account investor. She's just getting started at retirement account investing, so she doesn't have $100,000 or $200,000 right now to make a real estate purchase, but she does have the wherewithal, knowledge, and local network to get started. So Natalie finds a property in a highly sought after side of town and enters a contract to purchase that property for a value of $150,000. And up front, she puts up a $2,000 escrow deposit out of her retirement account. Natalie reaches out within her network and finds an investor that really wants to buy that property, and she offers to sell her contract to that investor for $5,000. So from there, Natalie's IRA has generated a $3,000 profit. She's assigned the contract over to the new buyer, who now has the rights to purchase that property for the $150,000 that Natalie had negotiated with the sellers. Again, I really wanted to show this strategy because it's a way that an investor can get into real estate investing without having $100,000 in their retirement account or a large deep pocket, and without having to consider options such as non-recourse lending or debt financing for real estate within a retirement account. That in itself is its own strategy. It's a bit more in depth. I've done webinars on that in the past, and I can point you in the direction of content for that if you're interested. Case study 3 is utilizing checkbook control for real estate investing. I do want to take a quick second. Checkbook control is a great strategy for investors that want to be a little bit more hands-on with their self-direct account. This strategy does put a little bit more onus and responsibility on you as the account holder to know the rules and regulations and act within those rules. You necessarily do not have Advanta to tell you, hey, this can or cannot be done in the moment, although you always have your account manager to reach out to if you have questions to that effect. But when you establish checkbook control, you're really out there putting your self-direct money to work at your discretion. If you've not reached out and double-checked a strategy or an investment that you'd like to make with your Advanta representative, you do have the potential of conducting prohibited behavior if you're not well aware of the rules and regulations. So establishing checkbook control really starts with opening up a self-direct account, moving money from your previous custodian or previous account to the self-direct account, and then establishing an LLC in the state of your choice and with the IRS to get a tax ID number registered. Once that is done, you prepare and provide the operating agreement and the bank account information to Advanta, and you direct your Advanta representative to fund an investment transaction, moving whatever portion of your self-direct money into that LLC that you would like. And then from there, you are typically the manager. You can also have a partner manager, assign someone else as your LLC's manager if you choose, but 99% of investors will list themselves as the manager, maybe also someone else. You have access to that bank account, and Advanta does not have access to that bank account. So again, you make the investments from there, whether it's going to your local courthouse and standing on the steps for an auction so that you can cut that check right away to pay off any one auctions, or you're a quick real estate investor and you want to have funds to mobilize very quickly for getting a property under contract. That's what this checkbook control strategy allows. It puts the money in your hands and allows you to make those investments in the name of that LLC, which is, again, an extension of your retirement account and subsequently a disregarded entity for tax purposes. Advanta signs the operating agreement as the member or the retirement account. You as the individual would sign the operating agreement as the manager, and moving forward, you would execute all of the investment transactions through the LLC, again, in the name of the LLC, in your capacity as the manager. Now, the same ownership percentage split and income and expense protocols that I outlined earlier in the webinar would apply if you have checkbook control. So just because you're buying a property within an LLC, if that property is 100% owned by that LLC, then all of the expenses and income need to flow through that LLC. If it's split, same thing as earlier, the LLC, which is an extension of your retirement account, is subject to the split for which it put up the initial purchase price, and that percentage should be tied directly to that dollar amount in ownership split. The Checkbook IRA owns 100% of the LLC membership, so it is important to know that you should list yourself as the manager, as you are the ultimate account holder. You do have a lot more power with this strategy, and If you have heard about this strategy before and you're not necessarily sure if it is legally allowed based on the IRS rules and regulations, there is case study and specific legal scenarios that have played out, Swanson versus Commissioner, and the T. Ellis situation with the memo in 2013 that basically indicate that yes, you can serve as the manager for your self-direct account LLC. You're not allowed to pay yourself any compensation for doing so, but you are allowed to be the manager and act on behalf of your retirement account as such. I don't see any further questions have come along, so I do want to give you all a heads up. These will be the last few slides, so if you do have any questions, please feel free to jot them down so I can answer them before we wrap up. I here have in front of us our educational content directory again. We do the participating in today with this webinar. When we are able to, we plan to return to Lunch and Learns potentially at our Largo, Florida office. We also have an office in Atlanta that is capable of hosting Lunch and Learn type webinars or Lunch and Learn type sessions similar to this webinar, but actually in person with Advanta representatives and our network of other professionals that can speak about really great, unique topics. Our video library of pre-recorded items, such as this one and other one on unique topics like I've mentioned earlier. We've got webinars on the checkbook control strategy, on non-recourse lending, on hard money lending. Those can all be found on our YouTube page, so feel free to check that out or check out our website and you can find links to them there as well. And also our blog post for specific industry news. Just to recap, it's real easy to get a self-direct account started. To open your account, it only takes about 15 minutes to complete our application. We can even send you a DocuSign request so you can complete almost all of it digitally with a digital DocuSign. Funding your account is very simple. In 99% of cases, it does not involve any taxable event. There are scenarios where if you're switching from a tax deferred to a post-tax or Roth style account, there may be subject taxes there, but otherwise you usually are not going to pay any taxes or have any taxable event when you're moving funds from a non-self-direct account into a self-direct account. And once your account is open and funded, you can start investing. Real estate investments, notes and mortgages, as I referenced, single member LLCs, and a multitude of other real estate investment strategies and investment strategies outside of real estate will be available at your fingertips once you have a self-direct account established. And with that, I will leave you all with my contact information on the screen again. Thank you so much for participating with me today. I hope that these strategies and this information can help you take a grasp of 2022. If you're interested in investing into real estate by way of a self-direct retirement account, this should open up a few doors for you and a few options that you can consider. Again, do your due diligence, make sure the strategy and the property and the specific investment fit your needs and your goals, but there's no reason not to do it if it's something you've either had your mind on, you have the money available, and you're interested in taking control of that money rather than letting it sit on a market outside of your direct hands and control and possession. I wish you all a happy new year. Thank you so much for participating with me. Please feel free to reach me directly if I can answer anything further for you or point you in the direction of some additional content that may spark your interest. Have a great rest of your day, and thank you very much.